All right, Alexander, we need to talk about an astonishing PDF that has been obtained by CBS News' Catherine Herridge. She was also on Fox News, and then she moved over to CBS, and she's pretty dialed into the intelligence community. Anyway, it says, and I'm reading from the conservative treehouse here. Their article was actually picked up by a lot of publications. I believe Zero Hedge also picked it up, and Revolver News. But anyway, they say in the first paragraph this. First of all, their title says, CBS obtains a 94-page outline showing FBI and Chris Steele collaborative use of media reporting. CBS News Catherine Herridge has obtained a 94-page spreadsheet showing dates of media reports, dates of Steele reports on the same material, and the FBI effort to verify or validate the circular process. In essence, this is evidence of the process we initially shared almost 3 years ago, only now we know the names. So this has actually been in circulation, they're correct, for a few years, but now we actually have the hard evidence of this. I guess it's like a media spreadsheet of intelligence communicating with reporters who are communicating with Hillary Clinton lawyers and campaign aides, who are communicating with DOJ officials and FBI, and of course Christopher Steele, and all of that whole crew, the Mueller team, all these people. It's kind of like everyone's doing like a circular verification, and one person's feeding to the other, and they're leaking to the other, and they're building the whole Russiagate, Putin, Trump, Russia narrative by feeding information one person to the other person, and they're just creating narratives and they're spitting them out to the public. Anyway, Alexander, get into your thoughts of this PDF and this story. And before we get started, I just want to remind everybody to hit that like, hit that share button. And if you are not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. That really helps us out a lot. And of course, the best thing you can always do is like this video. Liking this video gets it out there to many, many more people, and that's what we need. We need to get this channel more and more exposure. So, Alexander, what do you make of this story?
First of all, the first thing I would say is that I have known about this spreadsheet for years. I mean, it's been one of the things people who have been aware of Russiagate and who talk about Russiagate and the Russiagate investigation, we've known about it for a very long time. So it is fascinating, finally, to see this thing. And the second thing I'm going to say, and it derives directly both from the spreadsheet itself and from the reporting, which is that, you know, with Russiagate or with the Russiagate investigation, I have always known, I've known for a very, very long time that this is that very, very bad things happened. And then we get the evidence, and it turns out that it wasn't just bad as we thought, it was worse. And this shows you how much worse it really was. Now, two things to say. Well, in fact, more than two things to say, but two things immediately stand out. The first is that what clearly happens is that this is, as you know, the reporting here says, the conservative treehouse says, this is a circular fabrication of a narrative. So the FBI, people in the FBI, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page being two of them, plant stories in the media. It's interesting to find out that Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were amongst those anonymous sources that we're hearing, or we used to hear so much about. They were the people who were planting stories in the media. And the media then regurgitates them, publishes them. The same people, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, who created these stories, then embed them in the Russian narrative. They treat those stories as corroboration for the overall narrative. So do other people. The other person who's busy planting stories in the media is Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. Those stories then get regurgitated by Christopher Steele. So Christopher Steele is picking up stories that his associates planting in the media. He then puts them in his dossier. He then talks to the media himself. The media publishes his stories, and those he then used to corroborate everything else. So it's a bizarre fabrication of a narrative. Now, that's one thing that we've discovered. The second is that this is so cynical and so transparently what's going on that it is impossible any longer to believe, at least I find it impossible to believe, that all of these people who are doing those things, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, Glenn Simpson, Christopher Steele himself, can possibly have believed in any of this. They knew what they were doing. This isn't just a feedback loop. This is, an intentional concoction of a story out of nothing. And when I say out of nothing, that is exactly what that was. It is, you multiply 0 by vast numbers of numbers. What you're still left with is 0 because there is absolutely nothing there. But what you report on is all that vast numbers of numbers, all these, anonymous sources, all these leaks, all those things. So it creates a vast appearance of data when in fact there is no data at all. It's really quite astonishing to see how this was done. And the spreadsheet provides the evidence. It's the key to this. It's the key to the investigation itself. But it shows you also how, cynical this whole exercise was, and how cynical, I have to say this, the media is, that they still continue to report it and still continue to act as if there is something there. I mean, if this does not, call for indictments, I don't know what does. Because, at the very least, I'd say this is a case of what we in Britain would call a malicious prosecution. The investigators are part of the group that are fabricating evidence against the people they're supposed to be investigating. This is as bad as it gets.
Yeah, we say it many times on our programs, Alexander, that what Trump tweets, you can laugh about it sometimes, and sometimes it's a little outrageous and it's very colorful, but there's always nuggets of truth there. There always is. And I'm pulling up a tweet from Trump on 17th of February 2017, where he says, "The fake news media, failing New York Times, NBC News, ABC, CBS, CNN, is not my enemy. It is the enemy of the American people." And I'm going to put a chart up right now for all our viewers to see. And it's also from the Conservative Treehouse. And it has a picture of Nellie Orr in the middle. And she was one of the people that was circulating all kinds of nonsense. And literally, I feel like you need a PhD in this stuff to figure out what the hell's going on. It has her photo here. It has an arrow. It goes to contractors, and it goes to information getting fed to the NSA and the FBI database. Then Nellie Orr feeds it to Fusion GPS and Glenn Simpson, who then feeds it to Christopher Steele, who feeds it to Bruce Orr, who feeds it to Peter Strzok, to Stephen Halper, back to Strzok, back to Steele, to James Comey, Sally Yates, Peter Strzok, then to the FISA courts, and then to search engines and social media. It's absolutely nuts.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely nuts. It is the fabrication of a narrative by a group of politically motivated and very dangerous people. This isn't just gossip, remember. This is people who are in charge of an investigation and who are, in effect, I know that they deny it, but they were, in effect, investigating the President of the United States. And, well, this is not how investigations are supposed to be conducted. Now, we've learned something else, by the way, from Conservative Treehouse, which is I was always completely disbelieving of the story that you used to hear. I remember hearing this so many times, also from right-wing journalists, even people like Byron York would say it, that, Mueller and the whole Mueller team, they never talk to the media, that, this is a team that has managed to, prevent any leaks. And this is, being carried out secretly. And I never bought that. I never thought that was true. And in fact, what we discover is that right at the center of it all was Andrew Weissman, who was the person who we all know was in fact running the Russiagate inquiry. And he was talking to the media. In fact, he had a whole group of court reporters, mainly from Associated Press, and he was feeding them stories. So he was orchestrating the coverage of the entire investigation. I mean, he was doing this all the time, systematically. And so, we were getting all these reports at the time, that Mueller is closing in on, Manafort, Mueller is closing in on Flynn. The reason those reports were coming out was because Weissman was telling the media to run them. So this is also going on. So news management on an extraordinary scale, and news management of an investigation which is completely fabricated. The underlying material of the investigation is completely fabricated. Now, bear in mind, these same people who fabricated all these stories and who are massaging and manipulating the news media in this way, and who are orchestrating the news coverage of it, are the same people who are trying to investigate Donald Trump for obstruction. I mean, that is what's so bizarre. I mean, they're accusing him of obstructing an investigation of a crime which didn't exist, based on evidence which they themselves fabricated. I mean, it's so bad. I mean, I just don't know where to begin and where to end. As I said, I've always known Russiagate was bad, but whenever a new revelation comes out, it turns out it was worse.
Yeah, we've known for a while for example, the Michael Isikoff, Glenn Simpson kind of, circular verification part, and how they were constructing stories. We've known about that for a while, but I mean, this goes, like you say, this touches just about everybody involved in this hoax, and we now have the actual PDF in our hands. We can actually look at it and see how they were scheduling everything out, and it's extensive. I mean, it's 94 pages of media manipulation and media collusion. And I'll put a link for that in the description box down below so everybody can take a look at it. And just to give an example, here's one example from Conservative Treehouse, which I tried to pick the most simplistic example, because I mean, it's just nuts, the amount of communication and collusion that was going on. But here's a perfect example of how these guys were working this. So Christopher Steele was meeting with journalists. The journalists were writing articles. The FBI was leaking to media and simultaneously citing those same articles as underlying evidence to support their counterintelligence investigations. And all of this was used to validate the investigative documents the FBI was receiving from Christopher Steele, who, along with the leaking FBI officials, was also the source of the media articles. It's nuts. And one final point, we now know that Weissman was the leaker.
Yes. I mean, as I said, it is quite astonishing. And can I just say about this 94-page spreadsheet, it does not look like a spreadsheet of an investigation to me. Not at all. Spreadsheets in investigations can be used, but not in this kind of way. What it looks like is the structure, or the plot for the fabrication of a story. I mean, so you get all the various different pieces. You need a little bit of evidence here to
a Hollywood storyboard.
Exactly, a storyboard. Exactly, yeah. It's a storyboard. That is exactly what it is. Okay. So you need a bit here. So you get Isikoff to write a piece, and then you put it on your storyboard, and that's what it looks like. This is a completely sinister thing, and I mean, let us not be fooled, because I know what all these people are going to come along and say. They're going to say they acted in good faith. They didn't really understand what the other people were doing. All of these people were talking to each other. They were talking to each other all the time. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were plotting it all together. The storyboard, which is what perhaps we should call this PDF, proves it. That's what it was. I mean, it would be very interesting to know who it was who was the overall, master of operations. I suspect Peter Strzok played a big role, but there it is. This is what this whole thing was. It's just astonishing to see, and really incredibly disturbing. I mean, given that the FBI has had this document all along, given that Horowitz and all those people that presumably have seen it, I mean, the moment people get caught sight of this thing, they should have stopped that investigation immediately and issued arrest warrants, rounding all the people involved in it up and asking them what exactly is going on.
How much more do you need to indict someone? I mean, what do you need? You need a videotape? What more do you need? I mean, a videotape of Wiseman talking to a reporter at Yahoo News and saying, do this and do that. I don't know what more you need.
Well, I agree, actually. I mean, I would have thought the circumstantial case now is overwhelming. I mean, and bear in mind, I mean, the way you flesh out a circumstantial case is through questioning, through interrogation, through talking to, the witnesses and the suspects. And, I am pretty sure that tough-minded investigators who wanted to speak to all of the people involved, to Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and Andrew Wiseman and Glenn Simpson and all of those, if they were put through the kind of investigations and questioning that, say, George Papadopoulos and Michael Flynn and Paul Manafort and all those others were put through, well, I mean, we get it all. It'd be an open and shut case.
Unbelievable. Look, I'm going to put the link to the PDF, and everyone could take a look at it. It's absolutely nuts. It really is nuts, the amount of collusion that was taking place.
And to an extraordinary degree, collusion is the right word, not collusion between Trump and the Russians. Collusion between the Democrats, the FBI, the intelligence agencies, and the media. The media were absolutely involved, and on a vast scale. They all knew what they were doing.
Steele, Fusion GPS, lawyers. I mean, everybody.
Yes,
everybody,
exactly. I mean, Donald Trump talks about the swamp. Well, there it is. You have it. So you have it there. I mean, it's all laid out for you. Lots of people in Congress as well. Adam Schiff, Schumer. All of these people. They're all involved.
Well said. You have the entire swamp is there in 94 pages, from the media all the way to the government. It's all there.
It's all there. Yeah.
And they're all talking to each other and scheduling and coming up with how they're going to share information and one person to the other, and leaking from here and leaking from there, and then using this in the FISA docs. Anyway, I don't know what more you need. Really, I don't know what more you need.
No, I don't think you need anything, actually.
We'll leave it there. Alexander Mercouris, thank you very much. You have some merch over there. We'll just give a quick plug of our merch.
I certainly do. And I've got a mug of the United States, the country we've been talking about, which has been coming under so much pressure at present time in the United States with the election and all the rest. But of course, we've spoken a lot about how important this investigation is. But just to remind you, this is a mug with the flag of the United States. Alex has shown you a mug with the flag of Greece. They are the best mugs in the world. You can find lots of them in our shop. We understand that lots of people have been coming and buying our mugs, and they will be thrilled by them. And by the way, national flags, we have them on our shirts too. You can see I'm wearing an Australian flag on my shirt. Alex is wearing a Canadian one. We also have hoodies, and we've also got hats. We've got hats, and here's a hat with a flag of Britain, the United Kingdom of Great Britain, the country where I live. So you can come buy our merchandise, our wonderful, amazing merchandise. You support the Duran by doing so, and you become the owner of these wonderful things that we have in our shop, which is expanding all the time.
All right. Alexander Mercouris, thank you very much. Take care, everybody.